Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Forensic Focus. I am your host, Charles Amodio with FAZ Forensics. At FAZ Forensics, we specialize in forensic accounting and business valuation. At FAZ, when answers matter, FAZ delivers. Today, I have my colleagues with me, Christian Leva and Abigail Donahue. Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well.
Doing well, huh? Good, good. How was everybody's weekend?
It's good. Relaxing.
Relaxing.
Watch some hockey.
Watch some hockey. That's great. I know you're a big hockey fan, Abby, and I know you're a big fan of the Adirondack Thunder. And you have season tickets and go to a lot of those games. That's been a lot of fun this year, huh?
Oh yeah, they're doing great this year. So it's been good to go up and see them. It's exciting. So.
That's great. That's great. And how about you, Christian?
It was a good weekend. Playoff basketball started in the NBA. I'm a big basketball fan. Huge Knicks fan. They're looking good. The New York Knicks are back. First time in my life they've been this good. So exciting run upcoming, and you got to take it game by game. So excited for these next few weeks.
Yeah, like me, I'm a Knicks fan as well, and it's been a while since they've been consistently above average, and it seems like they've gotten to that point. Taking like baby steps here, but it's been a lot of fun to watch this year, which is great. So what's new in your life, Abby? What's new in your life? What's anything new going on? Any good news?
Not really. Honestly, it's been the same for the past couple years. I feel just working, studying for my CPA license, and just hanging out with my friends. A lot of my friends have jobs down near Albany, around Saratoga, so just kind of hanging out, enjoying my life, and
Good.
studying.
Yeah, there you go. As you should. As you should. How about you, Christian?
Same kind of idea. Same thing for me. I'm working on my CFE designation, Certified Fraud Examiner. Outside of work, we're getting out of skiing season and into golf season. So playing a little golf here and there. Just love when the weather gets nice. You can do a lot more.
So on the forecast today, it's going to be like 70, like low 70s on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to that. Even warmer on Monday next week. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be nice out.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you guys specialize in no fault work, lost self-employment earning work, and things like that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that, Abby? When you think about no fault lost earnings and the type of work that you're involved in, why don't you provide us with a little background on that and some of the work that you do in that area?
Yeah, so typically when I explain this, like to my friends or my family, when they ask what I'm doing at work, the biggest example I give them is an Uber driver because I feel like these are the no fault claims that we see the most often. So my example is an Uber driver gets into a car accident and they're injured, not just their car, but themselves. So obviously they can't continue to work because they're unable to drive. So what we do is we connect with the insurance company, the insured or the claimant, and oftentimes the insured's attorney, and we help calculate their lost earnings that they wouldn't be generating since they're not working. So we take a look through their financial history, their tax returns, bank statements, whatever they have, and we try to show the insurance company how much we think they lost and how much the insurance company should pay them out. But it doesn't have to just be Uber drivers. We see a variety of different self-employment jobs and businesses come through. But I feel like Uber drivers are definitely one of the more frequent ones. So that's a good example I like to start with.
So generally speaking, we're working on claims for people that are self-employed. A lot of times, sole proprietors. They own a business, small business, and like contractors, or as you mentioned, Uber drivers or hairdressers or plumbers or anybody that's self-employed, pretty much, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Good. And how about you, Christian? What's your take on the no-fault claims and lost self-employment earnings? Hope you're on mute, Christian.
I'll piggyback off Abby there. We work in conjunction with the insured, their attorney, and the insurance company. I think the big idea here is that we're helping the insured substantiate their claim. I think we get when these claims come across our desk, most of the time it's the insurance company needs assistance in understanding their business and then calculating those lost earnings. But the main idea here is we're helping the insured. So I think that's a big thing to I think understand when we first start some of these engagements. I think the insured sometimes get a letter from FAZ and they're wondering why they're getting this letter. And I think right off the bat, it's always very beneficial and makes the claim, or our work for the claim, go a lot smoother when we explain who's FAZ, why we're requesting the documents and information we are, and build that trust with them. It's a tough time in the lives of the individuals making these claims. They got into an accident, they can't work. That's tough. And it's important to build that trust with them and be on their side, and have them realize that we are on their side. We're trying to help them prove the claim, and that's an important side of things, of no fault, that I like to keep in mind that we are really helping out the insured. And it feels good when we can wrap up a claim and the insured, and they seem to be happy with it. Makes a big change in their lives. And I think we help a lot of people out.
Great. And as you mentioned, I imagine this has got to be a challenging time for for the insureds or claimants. Obviously, we're looking to evaluate a lot of records, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the insurance company, they find that somebody's self-employed and they submit this claim for loss of earnings, loss of income. Generally speaking, they don't have a means in which to calculate these losses. I mean, typically, when somebody is an employee of a company and they get a W-2 at the end of the year, they make $48,000 a year. It's easy to say that that individual's earnings or income is $4,000 a month, pretty straightforward. But with these lost self-employment claims, it's not as straightforward. So that being said, I know, Abby, you mentioned a little bit about some of the documents that you look at. What documents are that you specifically request, and why are you requesting that information?
Yeah, so I think we like to always start with tax returns. I feel like they provide a pretty good summary of the insured's prior year earnings and expenses. But we also like to take a look at monthly earnings. Obviously, the tax returns are on an annual basis. We want to take a look at the monthly earnings as well, in case something like seasonality is a factor. For example, somebody that has a lawn care business, they wouldn't be working as frequently in the fall and winter months as they would in the spring and summer. So we want to take a look at those monthly earnings, which oftentimes we take a look at bank statements, whether personal or business, wherever the insured deposits their earnings into. Sometimes we'll take a look at profit and loss statements, whether generated through like an accountant or just their own personal software, I guess. Sometimes we also just take a look at copies of checks that were written out to the insured and kind of put it into a spreadsheet, look at it on a date basis, and put together an average for their earnings. Christian, I'm not sure if you could think of anything else, but those are the main ones that we take a look at.
Yeah, I think you hit everything that the main items that we take a look at. I think it's important to realize there's other documents that we can work with that may not be, initially requested by us, right? We have a pretty standard list of requests. The monthly earnings that you mentioned, typically a business would have a profit and loss statement, whether they use QuickBooks or maintain it themselves. But your example of an Uber driver, not many Uber drivers, maintain a profit and loss statement, because it's all on the app, right? It's on their driving history, their account statements. So I think that kind of goes along with building the trust with the insured and explaining our requests. There's other documentation out there that can still allow us to do what we need to do for the insured. Sometimes personal bank statements, right? They'll deposit their business earnings into a personal account, and that's totally fine. But when we request that, it's sometimes like it takes some explanation.
Right.
That's I think the monthly earnings are important, the timing of everything. It's also substantiating, right? We can calculate before the loss what were they making on a monthly or 30-day basis. But the second side of that, and the main basis of the claim, is lost earnings. So statements after the date of loss are also important to obtain, to show and substantiate with documentation. Here's what they were making on a monthly basis prior to the loss, and we can see after the loss, the deposits go down, the earnings are zero, the earnings are decreased. So the second half of that, the earning statements after the loss, are just as important as before the loss.
And I know with Uber drivers, they typically have a monthly income history that's readily available on the app and that they provide us with, and that's a good source of information. I guess what other sources of information would we look at? We would look at 1099s, and sometimes we get 1099s. We look at those as well.
Yeah, we look at those pretty often. However, I feel like more recently I've gotten in a lot of claims where the insured has multiple 1099s. So that's still why I want to take a look at the tax returns to see their total gross earnings, not just what they're getting paid from one company. I want to see everything all together because they can be contracted by different businesses, but we won't necessarily know that information unless we look at the tax return or the bank statements. But, the earning statements from an app where a 1099 are helpful. But personally, I think it's best to take a look at a tax return so you can see everything all together.
Now, no fault is a terminology that we commonly use, and it's again, it varies state by state, but there's only like 12 states that participate in the no fault insurance program. That correct?
Yeah, I can't remember how many states actually participate in the no fault program, but I know that New York is definitely a no fault state.
Yes. Yeah, I think at one point there was like 13 or 14, but I think it may be down to 12 right now. That being said, no fault makes it, makes the process a little bit more seamless when somebody's injured in an accident and they are looking to collect loss of earnings. In other states where there no fault does not exist, again, these are specific state insurance laws. They have to go through potentially litigation to collect damages and things like that. So it makes it a little bit more challenging. So I think in New York State, our premiums are probably a little bit higher than other states, but I think that, that's one of the benefits I believe you get out of it is being able to, file your claim and hopefully get paid in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, definitely.
So you guys were talking about some expenses and things like that. So why are you guys looking at expenses when we're evaluating loss of employment earning claims?
I'll take this one. The expenses. So I'm going to use the Uber driver example again. Arbitrary number. Say you make, $100 a week in gross earnings, and to generate those $100 of earnings, you incur $25 of gasoline expense. When you're injured and you're unable to work, the earnings are lost, right? So you're down $100, but what we call discontinued expenses, or also known as saved expenses, that $25 that you spend on gas is no longer incurred. You don't have to spend that money because you're not driving or you're not working. So the loss there wouldn't just be that $100 of gross earnings. It would be the $100 less the $25, which would discontinue or be saved as a result of the accident. So lost net earnings for that week, or we extrapolate out for a 30-day period, would be $75. So 25% of the expenses associated with the business would discontinue. So that's one aspect of the claims. I think that once we issue our report to the insurance company and the insured would like to review with us, that's typically the main aspect of the analysis that we are explaining or providing some more detail to. I think it's a simple concept, but it's something you don't really think about when you're making these claims. Yeah, so that's it's important, right? You're not working, so you're saving money on expenses. Yes, you lost some earnings, but your lost earnings aren't whatever your gross earnings are. It's offset by those expenses that you would no longer incur as a result of the accident.
Okay. So let's take an example of a non-Uber driver, let's say a contractor. Contractor generates $5,000 a month in revenues or gross earnings, and they feel that their loss is $5,000 a month. What is your general response to that, Abby?
I would tell them, we want to take into consideration things such as materials. If you're building a house, you're going to be buying, I've never built a house before, but I'm assuming that you're buying wood and nails, and if you need extra tools. If you're not building that house, you're not going to be paying for those things, hence you're saving money. Transportation or travel is a big one that we see a lot. If you're writing off travel expenses to get from, I guess, your house to the build site, you're not going to be doing that anymore if you're not working, so you're saving expenses there again. And there's other smaller expenses that I see that people write off a lot on their taxes. A lot of people put meals down, and a lot of people I've had not understand exactly why we have to discontinue that. They say, well, I still need to feed myself. I tell them, well, you wrote it off under your business, so we're assuming that these are meals associated with you working, and if you're not working, therefore you're not paying for those meals, so we discontinue them. So it honestly comes down to whatever somebody's writing off on their taxes. Certain jobs, we can kind of estimate what they're going to be purchasing or saving when they're not working, but others, we really want to take a look at their Schedule C on their tax return to see what they're actually writing off for their business.
And your reference to Schedule C, and the Schedule C is typically what an individual or a sole proprietor will file with their personal income tax return, to report their income and expenses on an annual basis to the IRS and to any state, typically New York State. As far as the Schedule C's are concerned, is there any nuances with the Schedule C's that you want to talk about? Anything specific about the Schedule C's that we should be aware of?
I think one thing, right, Abby mentioned we estimate in some cases the expenses associated with the business. Most cases there would be, the tax return hasn't been filed yet, or the copy is not available. So for certain jobs, right, we have a lot of experience with these claims. So we've evaluated a lot of different self-employed jobs, and we have a good understanding of what typically a business would report for expenses. Now, I think the important thing with that is if we do have a Schedule C and they are, a construction worker, if they don't report any expenses, they don't report any expenses. So in that case, we wouldn't estimate, oh, you should be incurring this. If they're reporting no expenses, then there's no expenses associated with the business, and that's just the matter of fact. So initially, when we send that request letter out and we get that first batch of documents, mainly that tax return, it's important for us to, schedule the Schedule C, lay all that out. And then the second step would be following up with the insured and, asking the necessary questions about Schedule C, just to get a good understanding of their business. There's some expenses like the car and truck Abby mentioned. Majority of the time that's gas, mileage. But sometimes the insurance for the car is baked into that. Sometimes the lease payment for the car is baked into that. And we need to understand that allocation, mainly for the discontinued expenses that we take a look at. So I think with Schedule C, it's important for us to essentially review that with the insured, to get the best understanding of what they're reporting, what makes up each expense, and how the accident has affected those expenses or revenues associated with their business.
So in regards to like the Schedule Cs, let's say an insured or a claimant provides you with Schedule Cs and their individual tax returns for 2022 and 2023. Is there a way for us to verify that information with the IRS?
Yeah, so when we send out our initial request, we send out what we call a Form 4506C. We have the insured fill out this form with their information that they write at the top of their tax return, their name, their address, and we have them sign the bottom. We send it out to the IRS, and they send us back these transcripts that confirm kind of just the basic face information that's reported on your tax return. It's a summary. It doesn't go into as much detail as the actual tax return, but we can take a look at the tax return that the insured provided us with and compare it to these transcripts to see if everything checks out. Most of the time it does, but we have had a few instances where the information that was reported on the tax return doesn't match the actual information that was filed with the IRS. So that kind of creates some issues for us, but most of the time they check out.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. That's good to know. So one of the things that one of the phrases I commonly hear is substitute services. And Christian, maybe you want to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so substitute services, right? We've mentioned throughout this conversation lost earnings. An individual may be injured, but the earnings could continue to be generated for the business. Now, that doesn't mean that the insured is working. Substitute services are a way that the insured can continue to generate earnings through either hiring an additional individual who had not previously worked for them to kind of fill in for them while they're out. Or if you already have an employee or someone helping you out that you pay related to the business, if those payments increase, right? If they typically work with you for 10 hours a week, you get injured and now, you've increased their hours to 40 to help you continue to generate that revenue. Whatever you're paying, the amount that you're paying, excuse me, that individual on a 30-day basis is also related to the lost earnings claim, right? You may not be losing earnings, but you're now incurring this additional labor substitute service expense. And that's included in the claim. And that's an important, it's an important thing to analyze when we get these claims. Sometimes the insured doesn't think like to include that in their forms that they issue for the for the claim, and we kind of discover that as we have that dialogue with them, right? We give them a call and say, hey, these earnings didn't really decrease. What am I missing here? And most of the time they'll say, oh, they continued because I hired my an individual or whoever it may be to help me continue to work or continue to generate earnings, not continue to work. So that the amount that they're paying that individual would be considered substitute services and can be included in that loss amount that we calculate for these no-fault claims.
So what kind of documentation do we obtain to support the substitute service claim? Abby, if you want to help me with that one?
So we would want to look at the payroll documentation prior to the loss to compare it to what the substitute is being paid after the loss. So we most of the time take a look at bank statements, checks that were paid to the substitute, or sometimes we'll look at the substitute's bank statements to see if maybe they're being paid through Venmo or Zelle or um, another app like that. However, sometimes people will tell me that their substitute is paid in cash. In that case, we kind of have a hard time finding documentation to support that. So if we have bank statements from the substitute to show that they were being sent or deposited X amount of money each week or month or whatever, we could use that. But sometimes we don't have that information and just kind of have to tell them there's nothing we could really do about it since there's not proper documentation. But I feel like most often I've received check copies that show that the insured paid X amount of money to the substitute for this pay period.
Okay. Good. Good. So Christian, what do you like about no fault claims?
I like each claim so unique. Um, each individual, Abby mentioned earlier, we get a lot of Uber drivers, even though, I mean, that being the case, everyone's very unique in how they report their earnings, the times, dates they work, when the earnings are generated. So I think it's very interesting to take, I've never met this individual. I have no idea who this person is when it comes across our desk. And by the end of the claim, I feel like, you build that rapport with them and you really get their business, you understand them. It feels great when someone, at the end of the claim, they're like, thank you, this really helped me out. I think I had a recent one where this individual, she mentioned to me after, I feel like I understand my business a lot better now. I think a lot of people, they're generating earnings, they're working, but they may not really be in tune with the financial end of things, the tax reporting, tracking expenses. So that specific case, it felt really good to, know that, this lady, she really understands her business better by working with us. It feels good at the end of the day to have somebody come out on the other side better than they were before they, were engaged with us. So I take a lot of pride in helping these individuals out in a tough time in their life. In that specific case, it's pretty cool that, in working with them and explaining what we're doing and asking them the questions for us to explain better, that they feel like they're now better off once they're back healthy and working full time again. I think that's really great. It feels good to help people out.
How about you, Abby? What do you like about no fault claims?
Kind of the same as Christian. I feel like there's just always something different with each new claim. The turnover for the claims is pretty high. Sometimes we can receive a claim and get a report out next week. Other claims can take months to complete, but there's always new ones coming in. It is always a different situation, different businesses. I've had claims range from Uber and Instacart drivers to doctors and surgeons. There's just such a variety of people that you get to talk to and different financial information to take a look at. It's interesting to see how somebody with a smaller business may report more expenses than somebody with a larger business. It's just always something different and it keeps it interesting. And like Christian said, you do get to talk to some really interesting people. And, I've had conversations with people who I update their claim every month or so if they're working on a part-time basis. And, they'll tell me like, oh, like, how was your weekend? How's work going? How's life going? Or they've told me like happy holidays or they'll just go on and talk to me for half an hour about something going on in their life. And it just feels nice because maybe they just needed somebody to talk to, if they're injured and they can't get out of the house. Maybe they're just bored and they just want to chat for a little bit. So it's a nice feeling when you can finalize your report and help them out, even if it's just a little bit. Anything can help.
And I guess it's a key, key the key point is that these are human beings we're talking about. It's not, yeah, there's a calculation and a financial aspect, but these are individuals, these are human beings. They've been injured in an accident and they're going through a tough time as Christian mentioned earlier, and they are, obviously are, you guys have created a rapport with them, which is great, which is awesome. So switching gears, we're gonna switch gears now, talk about FAZ a little bit. So Abby, how long have you been with FAZ?
I've been with FAZ a little over 2 years now. I started, I believe it was January 24th of 2022, so a little over 2 years.
Okay, great, great. And what do you like about FAZ? What's your favorite thing about FAZ?
I think everybody here is really understanding of a good work-life balance, but also try to make coming to the office enjoyable. I know that a lot of my friends, they don't like going into the office because they're kind of just put back in a cubicle or an office by themselves and they aren't very close with their coworkers. I mean, some of them do work for pretty large companies, but I think FAS being a smaller company, we have all grown pretty close to each other and gotten to know each other on a personal level. And we know everybody's interests, we know everybody's significant others, and even some of their friends. And I feel like we're all just very close, and it makes coming here fun. And I look forward to coming into the office and talking to people and working with them face to face. It's really nice.
Good to hear. And how about you, Christian?
I started with FAZ June 6th, 21, I believe. A few weeks after I graduated. We actually have a mutual connection, Charlie, that got us, connected, and had that interview middle of May and hit the ground running. And I don't know if there's anything I can add to what Abby just said. It was well put. I have that same sentiment of our company culture is I've never worked with such a fun group of people. But as fun and personable as we are, we're just as professional, and we have some really good experience here, and we do a lot of good work for no fault is the example today, but whatever aspect of what we can offer, whatever sector kind of we analyze, whether it's forensic valuation, insurance, we do a lot of good work here. And I think that our company culture kind of bleeds over to our clients. I think they enjoy also being in contact with us, working with us. And that's just a big part of that, aspect of building trust with whoever we're working with. I think it's tough to want to work with somebody, no matter how smart they may be, if they're not fun to be around, if they're not very personable. And I think we have just an unbelievable combination of, knowing what we're doing, but also, it's enjoyable to do it with us. And that's one of the best things I think we have here at FAZ.
Great. So on a personal note, Abby, what do you like to do outside of work?
I honestly like to think that I have such a variety of different hobbies. Recently, I've been thinking about, well, I didn't think about it, but I did start a little sugar cookie business of decorating the sugar cookies with royal icing. I haven't really had a lot of time to focus on it, but it's in the plans for one day. I'd like to have a little side business where I take custom orders and make sugar cookies. So I like baking, cooking. We're working on it, but I really like to bake. I also like to read and listen to like true crime stories, mysteries. Really big into those. And I also just like to be outside. My boyfriend and I, we like to go on walks and we like to look for like little things like mushrooms. He's really into finding like different wild, I don't even know what herbs, foods. He's crazy, but we like to do that, and we're hoping to go out camping this summer. We've been talking about it for a few years, but maybe this summer we'll actually make time for it. So
That's great. That's great. And how about you, Christian?
First, I'd like to say, Abby, we love when you bake. Anything you bring in here is always so good, and it's so nice in the morning walking in and seeing just something new that was baked. You do an unbelievable job with that.
thank you.
So thank you. Yeah, it's huge. For me, outside of work, like I mentioned earlier, into sports, golfing right now. We're actually joining. Well, we joined last year, but we're going to re-up it this year. We're joining a company softball league with one of the law firms that we do a lot of work with. We have myself, Sam is going to join us. He's part of our team. And then Charlie, your son, Joe, who's going to be interning with us in the summer, he's also going to play. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a great combination of, obviously, I like sports and playing sports, but we also get to connect with some of the folks we work with at that law firm. It's a good combination of networking and just getting outside when it's nice. It's a great release after work, especially after a long day. You have something to look forward to, and that something is getting active, which is great, being in the nice weather, being outside, and doing it with an enjoyable group of people that not only we can refer business to and get referred business, but they're our friends. I mean, we've built some really good relationships through that league. So looking forward to that. Hopefully I can get on Saratoga Lake sometime soon here. But yeah, should be a good summer. Looking forward to it.
That's great. That's great. Well, hey guys, that's all the time that we have for today. I really appreciate you guys joining me on our podcast, and I think this was a great opportunity for everybody to get a chance to know a little bit more about you guys and what you do. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome.
You
Thanks,
as
Charlie.
well.